What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Today we have the one and only on Aaron. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, good, Devin. Great to be a guest. It's been a long time. Sorry for the absence, but thank you as always, for having me on.
Far, far too long. So you recently moved. So a nice, good topic is about moving tanks. I know I've moved my fair share, and I know you've very fresh on that one, and you've moved your handful too. And it can be a very painful headache, or it can be a fairly smooth, opportunistic process. So we figured it'd be a fun one to drive into today.
Yeah, I mean, I think the beauty of it is it's both, right? And what I found in this move, compared to the other move a couple years ago, was the first time when we moved the tank, it was all about brute force. Like, how can we get the most number of guys here to help move this tank? And it wasn't a very far distance. It was literally from the garage, which was the next room over, through a doorway into the house. And so, brute force, man strength was the way to go. Learning from that experience, I was like, okay, there has to be a better way. Let's be a little bit smarter about this. So this time I took a completely different approach to it to see how can we think through the way to make the move easier, less heavy lifting manually. And I think it paid off, and we can dig into that.
No, awesome. And I agree. Most of mine have been the brute force thing as well. Like, even now, I'm just thinking getting the water box home. Like, I shipped that to the border and had a buddy at the truck drive it back. And then getting off the truck was a battle. And then getting into the house, I had like 4 or 5 guys trying to like lug that heavy 3/4 inch 19 mil glass up the stairs. Like, it was heavy. So yeah, definitely been there.
I'm no spring chicken anymore. So it's like, I don't want to be throwing out my back or get a hernia from it. So it's like, I want to think this thing through and plan it accordingly. And the beauty of it is I actually had the luxury of not having to move the house and the tank at the same time.
That's a big one.
That was huge. So we had the whole house moved at least a month ahead of time before needing to move the tank.
Nice.
And so that created, again, the kind of ease to be able to say that, get the house stuff done first, unpack stuff a little bit, then start to dig into actually, how to structure the tank move where you don't have to do it all at once. And I get it that that's a luxury, but I think it really paid off in the sense that I was able to plan it accordingly. And then I kind of, maybe even just as important, do the tank move over 2 days.
Yeah.
And so Unique Corals helped me to move the tank this time, and Joe and Brian and the team were awesome. Like those guys are just like such pros at moving tanks, and they made the suggestion, instead of doing it over one long day, let's do it over 2. And so for day 1, we moved all the livestock. So I had 2 40 breeders set up next to the tank over here, set them up with lights, skimmers, hang on the back filters, and we moved all or as much of the coral and the fish as possible day 1. And that was maybe a 3-hour process, and it was super simple. So come day 2, all we had to focus on was the tank and draining it and the rock and getting that moved over. And I think even just that separating it out over 2 days, it reduced that stress of trying to move a whole tank in 1 day, which is normally what happens. So
and it's a long chaos day too when you have to
and the distance between the 2 houses wasn't very far. It was literally a 10-minute drive. So
nice.
it was super quick, 3 turns. It was pretty easy. But nevertheless, it's a move, and there's a lot that goes into it. So doing over 2 days was great. I'm glad that Joe and Brian suggested that, and anyone that can do that and are thinking about moving, consider that as an option of splitting out livestock versus the tank itself.
Oh, that makes sense. And just throwing this out there, in ideal world, my ideal strategy, again, if you have the new place a little bit of time beforehand, use an excuse to upgrade, put in the new tank, and then move your stuff into it. That's like the perfect world situation. But again, that's not always doable.
Yeah, I thought about that, and it's like, what am I going to do with this other tank, And so, yeah, it would have been awesome, to upgrade, but there's no reason I needed to. The tank is a year and a half old anyway. So
yeah, it's a beautiful tank. You're good there.
Yeah, and I didn't need to do that. But, I did think about what to do with like the sand and some of the rock. And, I was talking to Sever about it, and he's like, well, if you as I had new sand already. He goes, if you replace out the sand, all of that beneficial bacteria that you've been building up for a year and a half is just going to go to waste. So he's like, think about keeping that sand in there first. It's going to be a mess to move, but all that bacteria is going to help with the restabilization of the tank. And I'm so glad I listened to him on that, because it really did make a huge difference. And with the tank being set up, that I have not gone through any of the ugly stages now, because all of the sand was collected. I got about 90% of the water between the.
Did you clean your sand at all? Like, was it nasty? Did you rinse it?
Oh, it was nasty as heck. But no, I didn't rinse it. I didn't clean it. I kind of just dumped it back in. I used the 50 micron filter mesh, a mesh sock to put in there to catch it. Yeah. And it got full of crap, after about 20 minutes. So I kept having to rinse that out.
Okay, that's gonna happen.
But within a day, it was completely clear, and I had no problem. So the day after, by the weekend, I was able to put coral and stuff back in there, and I didn't have any problems, or any cyano outbreaks or diatoms. So that definitely helped. And I still have the 3 bags of sand, so I might add some in here or there, or do something else with those other bags.
Yeah. So whenever I've done it, I've always either A, used new sand, or B, rinse out, kind of clean out all the nasty out of the sand. But again, you're going to lose a bunch of your good bacteria in the process. So it's always that trade-off.
Yeah, and I've always been trained, when moving and doing this, just get rid of the sand and put new stuff. And so, that was already why I had, got the sand just in place to do so. But, when talking to Severin, he kind of had me stop and pause and rethink that. And I'm glad I did. And I think his recommendation was spot on, to be able to just use it. And again, it's going to make a muck. But, I've recouped such a vast amount of the bacteria because of that.
No, very true. In retrospect or futurespect, I'm almost thinking if I was going to do that, I would just the month or 2 leading up, just really get the sand bed, a really good vacuum, just get out all the nasties, so it's not quite a disaster. Just to save a bit of work, but.
Yeah, I even just gravel siphoning, a couple of days before would have made a huge difference in that. And I did actually do a water change on the tank, where I filled up the 2 40 breeders with the tank water. So the holding tanks were 100% tank water. So again, putting the corals in that, there was no problems, because there was an environment that they were completely used to with all the same parameters. So when I mixed up, new water to put into the 980, that was basically my water change. And then that next day, we drained the entire tank. So we had, I don't know, I think like 45-gallon containers just full of water, and then the brutes and stuff like that. So as I said, I was able to save, just about all the water to put back into the tank. I had a 44-gallon brute full of water. We used it, between doing some of the water changes and such, but it really helped to be able to save as much water as possible.
Yeah, no, definitely. In the chat, Rubbermaid comes in handy. They definitely can. Last time we moved a big tank, Home Depot has those couple foot big plastic black bins for like $10-12 or whatever. I used a ton of those when we did in the past, and they worked out pretty well, and they're cheap and they're sturdy.
Yeah, so that's actually what we use for all of the rock, because my Aquascape, and it's kind of over 4 parts, but like this whole structure is 1, where the leather there's 2, and then this top one here is the top one on top is 1, and then there's a couple on the base. They're too big to fit in a taller brute, right? So we use those black longer ones, and it made it much easier, and when we used polystyrene to pack around the rocks, and wet towels, because that big one on the side over here, is just kind of cascading up. So we just kind of tucked around it with the polystyrene, and it didn't budge at all. So that definitely helped make life a lot easier, and 2 people can lift those up and move it, pretty easily.
So you didn't actually submerge your rock in coral; you just put wet towels over top, and that worked pretty well, eh?
Yeah. So knowing that we would be moving at some point, and I probably talked about this before, I made these little pucks. And so I used the Aquaforest Life Source mixed in with the sand and the Stone Fix.
Nice.
and I kind of made my own hockey pucks.
That's cool.
And so I put all the frag plugs on these little discs and just placed it onto in the tank, knowing that I was going to be moving at some point. And so literally we just went through, picked them all off, and then I was able to put into the holding tanks whatever stuff had overgrown the hockey pucks. Literally, I just took the bone cutters and just clipped off. But it wasn't all that much because I had known this day was coming.
Nice. Well, it's good planning then, right?
And I think that's what it all comes down to is the further you can go out and make a plan, the easier it's going to be to make that move possible. So, but yeah, we didn't cover the coral was taken off of the rock, and we just used paper towels and wet towels to cover on the rock, and about 3/4 of the way full of those black bins.
Yeah. So what about corals that have encrusted and like they're part of the rock now? Did you break them off? Did you leave them?
So all the acros that had fully encrusted, I did take those off. The LPS that had encrusted over, I left those on.
Okay.
So I felt bad pulling off some of those acros that were like fist size and bigger.
Yeah.
They look beautiful, and honestly, right now they're kind of poor thing. But it was better for me to take them off and re-put them back on than to have them just be sitting in there without a heater, getting cold for that length of time. So for me, it was less stress to get them out and put into a warm circulating tank within a half an hour than to leave them sitting in a bin for a couple hours.
No, fair. Did you glue them back to the same spot, or did you like glue the skeletons together again? And
yeah, I do have some of them in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
Others I haven't fully put down. So the tank kind of looks a little hodgepodgey at the moment because I've been going through and dipping everything as part of the move process. So when you asked me, oh, do you want to do this stream? I was like, I better put the stuff back in the tank. So yesterday I bust out the Aquaforest Protect Dip and put everything and dipped it all, and made sure that I could get off as much of the bristleworms and any of the stuff that I needed on the corals before I put in. So
now, did you have any pests per se, or is this just an excuse as to like clean house a bit, make sure?
I went into it doing it just as a precautionary, but I did actually find some acro-eating flatworms on one of my smooth skins.
Oh, the punks.
So yeah, and I found eggs on another acro. So some of the stuff that's in holding is there because I want to see if any eggs have hatched on it. But I've gone through now and they've all been dipped 4 times, and all the plugs have been either cut off and put on new bases, or I've fully used my new handy dandy massive toothbrush here, and I'll send you the link to this thing because the head on this thing it's like it's mustache size. It's like it's
that is a solid toothbrush.
Yeah, so I think it's called like the big ass toothbrush, and it's super hard. And I've told everybody about it because this is my new reef hack. You can use it in the seams to get all the coralline on your pumps and everything. So it's my new best friend. It comes Amazon for like $10, pack of 5.
Perfect.
I'll send you the.
Sounds good. Okay, so the other thing I do too, if you do see eggs, I mean, ideally just cut off that area. Yeah. And then reglue it, or smother them in super glue so they're in their little super glue tube.
Yeah. So the last yesterday when I dipped everything, there were no eggs, no juveniles, and I had my inspector glasses on looking at every coral. So I'm glad that I took that precautionary note and checked them all instead of just putting them in the tank, because if I didn't, I would have just had a pest continue in the system again.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's mine disappeared. I'll be back eventually. The other bit of funness, or one of my buddies I thought was interesting, when he moved to a different province. So he moved pretty far away, and he took all of his fish and coral, everything, and he put it in an old freezer in the back of his moving van, and he kind of used that with a temperature, like a heater and a temperature, like to keep the temperature controlled, because he was doing a pretty far move. Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was kind of a clever way to do it, just using it like an old chest style freezer. Yeah,
put an air stone in there, a circulating pump, and I'm sure that would have worked
Yeah.
And probably the height of it kept the water from bouncing around as well.
No, exactly. So yeah,
Yeah,
or at
smart
least
move.
it sloshes it. It's got its sealed-ish lid. So yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Fun times.
I know, right?
So yeah, so overall, the move was pretty painless. You think of it in, per the title, could it be easy? Could it be hard? And honestly, it can be a combination of both, and you don't know until you really get into it. But one of the things that I found was just having that time to make that checklist and go through it was critical. So in prep for this, I kind of put through some of the things that I was thinking about. So what were my electrical needs? So previously it was on, the house's, power plugs, and I was right at that hairy edge between what was safe and what wasn't safe. And so what I wanted to do is to make sure that I had a dedicated line. So before the tank got moved in, I had two dedicated 20 amp circuits put in, and now the tank is running on that. So I know that I have ample electricity for the tank to not put any draws on the rest of the house.
Nice.
And so that was one of the things that I wanted to check. The second was flooring. So they're both on the first floor, but I wanted to make sure which way the joists were going and the subfloor to help to offset any of the weight. And if I needed to put something below it to help to balance out, what that distribution of weight would be. So, that was one of the big things that I just needed to make sure which way were the planks going. So that turned out to be okay. And how level was the floor? I think that's something that I took for granted before, and I think a lot of us do, is that you just assume your floors are pretty level, but in fact, it really wasn't. And so, the Aquaforest tank has a number of the feet on the bottom. So, I had done the work ahead of time to see where the floor was level, where it wasn't, how did it slope back, so that I could build that out accordingly. And what I decided, and we talked about this before, how much space do you have behind the tank?
Yeah.
And before, I had enough space to get back there with my arms and such. Now I have enough space. My whole body, I can literally walk behind my tank.
Nice.
And some people may think, oh, aesthetically that won't look good, or I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to put my UV back behind there. But I found just that ability to get back there, to clean the algae, to look down, to check on the overflow box, is well worth it. So having it come out my body's width around was a great decision.
Oh, you have way more space than me. I just have mine enough to fit the MP60 drivers on the back of my water box. But again, I put power bricks down there. I have a little space here, a water container. I have all kinds of stuff hidden in that crack.
Yeah, and that's what most of us do, is we just push it back as far as we can. And I was like, I want to make this a more usable space for me, right? I'm going to have built, so one thing you probably notice is the halides are not on here.
You went all LEDs.
I did.
Attaboy.
So for two reasons. One is because this is a very tall ceiling, and so it makes it really hard to try to put that aluminum structure back in there. And because this is the entryway room to the house, I really didn't want anything big and cumbersome.
Yeah.
And so it really had to be super slick, minimal. This angle that you can see now is because I'm sitting much lower, but I'll stand up and then you can see. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah. Looks good.
There we go. So I use the 3D reefing. They do these light guards, and you've probably seen them for their XR15s, but he also has them for the XR30s.
Nice.
So he made 4 of those for me, and my wife, who's shorter than I, can sit on the couch and we can look at the tank, and there is zero blinding that happens from them, which is absolutely awesome. So
I actually did a very similar thing with mine once I had the baby, just to like kill the light spills. So it's not hitting those supplies.
Yeah, I mean, it's super helpful. And so a huge shout out to 3D Reefing for making those. They have notches out on the side. So, depending on, which orientation, you get enough ample spread on it. I also got his coral glasses. Yeah.
Nice.
So, and the reason I'm pointing these out is because if you're like me and have bigger glass frames, some of the coral glasses are a little bit narrower, but you can see these fit over perfectly. So nice. I'm able to actually get a good get a good view of the corals without needing to do too much.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is awesome. And he also does the AI blades, so the units for those. So I'm going to be putting those onto the tank as well. So yeah, I mean, again, going from halides, I love the halides. I love the color. I loved all the output that they did for the coral growth and the variety of colors that came through the corals. I didn't enjoy the power bill. And
No.
This house doesn't have solar panels yet.
You can add some?
Down the road, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm probably going to sell the halides before that.
To fund the solar panels?
To fund the solar panels. Exactly.
Awesome.
And again, because it's an entryway showpiece, there's a sofa on the other side of me here. It has to look good as well. So while I loved my Giesman metal halides, Greg Carroll and you had encouraged me to go to the LED side again.
Yeah, welcome to the club. Quick shout out, hello to Reef Boy. Thanks for the super chat, just for inviting Aaron onto the show. See, you have a big fan.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
and if you're not following him and checking out his build, he's awesome.
He has a pretty slick build.
Yeah, it really is. So check it out. He's as OCD as we are.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, it actually is pretty dang nice.
Yeah.
OCD is a thing with us.
it is with us in this hobby. And so, some of the other things that I'd been thinking about, with this, in addition to that space, so I had the electrical line put in, is the automatic water change system. And so what I don't want to be doing is having to bring these, 44 gallons of water through the house and dumping these 5-gallon buckets around. So I haven't figured out how to do this. So if anybody is an expert in auto top-up systems that have bins outside, reach out to me. I'd love to hear what you're thinking, or you've seen something cool, put it in the chat. I'd love to check it out. Is on the other side of the wall here, is the side of the house, and putting in a freshwater to make salt water, and then a freshwater for top-up. Water change system, and there's a drain there as well. And just being able to hook up a barb fitting to hose and do my water changes to go directly down that drain. So
that'd be easy.
That's what the plan is. I got to just find a good template instead of bins and a system to be able to work out to do that. But
do you want it automatic or manual?
I would like it to be automatic. So I'd like to be able to tie into it, my Apex into it. And so there's power there, there's water there. Yep. So the challenge that I have is that my water spigot is on the other side of the house. So I got to find a way to draw the water line over for it to fill up the ATO reservoir. So that's something I got to figure out the best way to do that.
Yeah. Well, does it freeze there or no? You're probably fine.
No, I'm in Southern California.
That's what I mean.
Just
wrap an RODI line around the house to RODI filter right to your bin. Let it always top it off, and then you can have that one fill up your saltwater bin. Little hole through the house for your ATO and your drain. Yeah, that wouldn't be too hard at all.
Yeah. So I've kind of looked at if you like in your laundry room, where you got the hot and cold thing that's there, having one of that with a door on it. That will have 3 holes, one for the drain to go out to drain for the water down, the water changes, and the other 2 is the water in, water out system. So, and I'm going to tie into that a port for outside air as well, so that I can pull ambient air for my skimmer instead of using the recirculating system. Yeah. So that's the plan on thinking about equipment. I got to deal with heat on the other side of the wall. So in the summer, it'll be 40 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and just being able to deal with the water coming through being warmer, I got to be able to cool it down.
Well, or just do like a gallon a day water change, and then that 1 gallon worth of warm water isn't going to make too big of an impact on your tank. Just do small daily ones, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about heating or cooling or anything. That's what I do.
You're more than just a pretty face.
Easy peasy, easy peasy. You already got the Apex, so throw on a dose, throw it outside so it's quiet, and then have it suck and pull at the same time. Then your auto top off won't care or notice the difference, and you're good.
I think that you're onto something there, and I will probably pick your brains a little bit more about that.
I would get one. Okay, all right, we're just gonna fix this right now. Like at Costco, you know those little like bike sheds they have, those
Yeah,
little
yeah,
like things. Get one of
yeah.
those, put it outside solid the tank.
Yep.
Can have your RODI and your two bins inside of there. Everything's hidden in this one nice little box. Yeah, you just gotta get a little like thing on the wall to pass through your stuff.
Yeah,
Set.
and I'll put a vent in the top for cooling.
Yeah, you be set.
Yep.
I think you'd be
I
good.
think that is a brilliant idea. So yes, that will be something that will be going in before summer for sure. Because moving that crap around, it really, really, really sucks.
Yeah, I agree. Tracy, thank you for the super chat, buddy.
Thank you.
Been a
thank you,
few
thank you.
weeks. Smash that like button, subscribe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we got more than 24 people watching this and only 24 thumbs up. So
Yeah.
smash, smash, smash.
Smashy, smashy. 62 live. 23
yeah.
likes. Slackers. Okay, so you
yes.
this move for you was pretty nice because you were across town, right? Not across the country.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you-
I was literally 10 minutes away.
That's just nice. Have you done a long distance move with a tank yet?
So when we moved the tank previously, it was not that much. It's about a 2-hour drive away. So it was a little bit further away, which definitely made for a much longer, much more stressful day when I moved my old water box. So that was definitely a major nightmare to try to move that. And so again, thinking of what that pain was and that all day one move. Being able to separate it out, it definitely helped a lot.
Yeah. No, definitely. That 2 days is nice.
It was great, and it has now given me time to think through how could I even optimize that, or how can I use the space around here even better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the extruded aluminum frame that I had for the halides, repurpose that into a caddy, so that I'm going to put, see if I can. So where that water bin is now, I'm going to put a caddy on that side of the tank, and then one over on that side, reusing all of that extruded aluminum that I have, so I can put the calcium reactor, so I can put my Pax Bellum and all the other equipment that I want to use into the tank, put in there, and then the other side just be all the Apex stuff. Yeah. So I'll have all my dosing stuff, all like that stuff, just laid out beautifully. So I know Antonio did a bit of a talk about his system, and he inspired me to think a little bit through that. And I've talked over at Kyle at Adaptive Reef, so he's going to help customize something for me that I can put all the equipment in there. And I think that will go a long way to see that this as a piece of furniture can look as good as it could be.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're going to make all your gear more display on the sides.
I'm still going to have it closed off so little fingers don't get into it. But what I'm going to do is, because I find doors opening to be a bit of a pain. And you probably remember when you and I did one of our really, really early chats, I actually had the doors off of my tank. Yeah. And pre-kids, I used to roll with my tank with my sump without the doors on it, and because I like the accessibility of it. So what I'm going to do for those caddies is I'm going to do the French cleat method. So the French cleat is basically a clip and something sits into it, right? It's used for artwork. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is the doors on that are going to be one piece of either glass or acrylic, and just to have them be able to lift the whole thing right up and out. So I can fully get into those, because the side things are they're just over 3 feet. So I got a meter on each side to play with. With the 20, probably 30 inches deep and 30 high. So I got a sizable amount of room. Nice. I want to be able to get into it. So again, thinking it through, that's kind of how I'm going to put it. I thought about getting another Aquaforest stand and just putting 2 stands on each side, right? So the whole thing would match. And I love it. Severin laughed at me about it, and so did Jeremy and Jay. But I thought about it, and then I was like, wait.
I would do something ridiculous next year like that. I love it.
Totally. But I'm like, I don't want to put more tanks because there's the windows right there. Yeah. So I was like, well, why don't I just utilize that extrusion that I have? A car can go on it, so it won't be a problem.
Yep,
So
you're
that's
set.
how I'm going to repurpose that. So I got a compound miter chop saw and a disc blade.
Yep,
So that'll be the next project to get those built.
nice. You need the non-ferrous metal blades for the aluminum.
I'll check to see what this one is. Thank you.
I bought one for doing metal stuff like aluminum. Cuts it like butter. It's great.
Like butter. All right.
Yeah.
You might need to send me a picture of what you got there.
All right, remind me after. I'll find it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that works really well for aluminum. But yeah, that would be pretty cool.
So the other thing that I'm going to play with, and it's kind of hard to see on both sides, but I have the Panerai 42 Pros on there as well. And so what I'm trying to get away with is having anything on the side of the glass. I want all the pumps to be on the back, moving some way around. So I got thinking, how can I utilize the 2 outlets from the tank in a more useful way? So I'm going to repurpose my VCA random flow generators, and I bought a whole bunch of lock line, and I'm going to run lock line along the top of the back of the tank.
Yep.
A right angle to the sides,
so
another right angle down, and I have it split with a Y.
Yep.
So I'm gonna have on both sides, so 4 random flow generators being able to be adjustable.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I haven't seen anybody do this before. I've not even told Antonio, so if you're watching, that's a surprise. But I've got all of the equipment here ready to try that. So that's my way of trying to be able to get no pumps on the side.
I like it. And then the rest of your pumps will be back wall shooting forward?
Just on the back wall shooting forward, or at least angled to go across. So that's the thinking. And because right now I'm only running my L2 at 67%, I could bump that up to 70 or 75%, no problem, and be able to accommodate that extra back pressure that I'm getting from those random flow generators.
Yeah, you got lots of headroom there. Think of the extra power you have since you took off the halides.
Seriously, right?
Right?
The meter is not going like this anymore.
I know, it's great.
So, but you did bring up heat before, and honestly, they didn't produce that much more heat.
Fair. I just remember the old school ones. You'd like burn yourself if you touched them. And, you could feel the heat radiating around it.
I mean, if I was under there long enough, I'm sure I'd get a suntan. But yeah, I mean, cool to touch comparison night and day. But yeah, so that's some of the things that I'm thinking of. The other is, because we were here for a month with no tank, we know what silence is, and I know this is something that is near and dear to your heart.
Yep.
Having 2 tanks next to each other, my wife's office is on the other side here. Achieving silence is going to be the next big thing. So I went out and I bought a bunch of noise canceling tiles. So I'll send you the link to these. So they're 12 by 6 by quarter inch. They're like subway tile size. And they're beveled on the side so that you can put them in different places. So I'm going to do the inside top of the tank and the sides, and then the back. I'm going to cover the inside of the sump with them, just to help to baffle some of that sound. And I may even do it on some part of the back wall there, where the sump water overflow is.
I'm curious to know how much of a difference it makes. You should take like the decimal meter app on your phone or whatever and just do a before and after comparison. Yeah, I'm wondering how much you do in the stand, because like when my skimmer turns on, like I can tell the difference. Like that's probably the loudest thing, is just like from the skimmer.
And so the skimmer is the next thing. So I'm probably going to replace my skimmer. But what I did do for now is I took 2 pieces of polystyrene and I put underneath the rubber feet, and so now it runs perpendicular to the feet. And that added another level of silence to it as well, because the polystyrene absorbed enough of those vibrations that it made it even that much quieter. So
interesting.
Think about getting a piece next time you get something shipped to you.
Well, in the past, I've used these little like pot thingies, those little rubbery silicone pads that they work well.
That's what I had before, is a silicone one underneath it, but I found that the reverberation of the silicone, it wasn't rigid enough.
Oh, interesting.
So being able to use the polystyrene in there.
So just like the white packing foam?
Yeah, here.
I wouldn't think that would work as well, but I guess it does.
I'll see if I can.
Good to know. Yeah, I like on mine. I don't even think it's necessarily the motor hum. It's more just like the air sound inside of it, like the like if it's on, you almost don't notice it. But when I hit feed mode, it turns off. Then I'm like, oh, it's
Yeah.
quieter all of a sudden.
I wonder if you went with a more rigid tubing for it, right? If the ID, the wall,
Yep.
the tubing wall was thicker, that it would help muffle it a little bit more as well. And I know that
You
between
are
different.
Yes, you are definitely right, and that's a great point because I put on like the thinner silicone tubing when I changed it to go to my whatever it is, my CO2 recirculating scrubbery thingy on top.
Yeah.
And I know I just bought some whatever tubing for it, and I bet you're right. That would make a difference.
Yeah, thinking like your Ozotech ozone tubing, right? It's thicker wall, so that you're not
Yep.
going to get that compression. Something whatever size that you need for your air intake, that would definitely help add some extra degree of silence in there.
All right, I'll look into this.
Yeah, me
Good
too.
call. Good call. All the little things, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So I know we're cut from the same cloth and wanting to be able to achieve some silence there.
Yeah. Okay, so another thing we mentioned earlier in the chat, if when moving tanks, a couple of people are talking about, suction cups are a big thing, and they definitely make it a lot easier to move the tank. You said you actually used a hydraulic lift for yours, which is like,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah, so we used two hydraulic lifts. So there was four of us and two hydraulic lifts, and we also had suction pads as well. So there were four suction pads that as well. But having those hydraulic lifts meant that we could put the lifts right over to the tank, shimmy the tank left, right, left, right, left, right. Use the suction pads, lift it up, and then down like 2 inches onto because both the hydraulic lifts were the same height.
Nice.
So put it on top of that, and then wheel it through, and then get it out that way. Versus trying to manhandle this thing and then deadlift it down, right? And that's where you break your back and fall over. So just to help that up and down piece made all the difference in the world. And Unique Corals had two of them that allowed us to make this move happen. I did see that you can rent them as well. So if you're in an area and you don't want to do it yourself, you can rent them. They were like $60 a day. It would definitely be worth it just to have one or two of these to move a tank. And again, 6-foot tank, two of them. 5-foot tank or less, you can probably get away with one. Don't hold me accountable if something happens, but a smaller tank you can get away with less. But they really did make moving so much easier. And what we did is we step counted. So the two guys just pressed at one time. So it was 3, 2, 1 press, 3, 2, 1 press. So we went up and down in unison, making sure that one side didn't offset and cause any potential catastrophes.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, that works, but that's pretty cool. I like it. I've never had that luxury, but next time, I like your stuff.
Yeah, again, it was, I don't want to break my back on this, and we had a limited number of people that could be involved. So it was like thinking it through that way that it could be, as effective as possible without breaking our back. So yeah, the silicone definitely helps. Make sure that glass is super clean. Definitely isopropyl alcohol on that glass before you put them in.
Oh, for the suction cups.
But the suction cups, and then clean those suction cups as well to apply them. It makes a world of difference. Windex leaves a residue, so using an alcohol-based wipe or cleaner will remove that residue so that you get a good clean bond.
That's a good point. Very good point. Nice. Did you remove the sand and completely drain it, or do you just have it down pretty low?
Yeah, no, so we completely removed the sand. The only thing that was left inside of there was the 5 abalone.
Yeah.
So, and because
didn't want to leave.
Well, last time I tried removing them, I had gotten a spatula and a metal trowel, and I had to pry them off, and it was a nightmare. So this time we left them in there, and I just put a wet paper towel over them. And they all made it. They are all perfectly happy. But yeah, it was 20 pounds of sand in there, so we didn't want that extra weight and sloshing around. So it was a chance to get that out and do a good cleaning of the whole tank and get all that coralline, because I had sheets of coralline growing. So being able to get all that off and clean, a thorough deep clean really helped.
Now, did you just razor it, or did you use citric acid or vinegar or anything on the tank during the middle, or?
So for the tank itself, I did just use razor blade. I used
Yep.
the 4-inch razor blade on it.
Mm-hmm.
For the sump, I did actually use a citric acid because I was able to tag team cleaning out the sump while the team was getting the tank in place.
Yeah.
So we were able to tag team in that, and so I was able to clean out the sump,
Nice.
which helped. Yeah.
On a funny note, in my display beside me, because if I move my office, I was thinking about this,
Yeah.
because I have a copper band in there, and there's like not a single aptasia visible in the tank, but I see a bunch of my sump. I'm like, God, I deep clean the sump while I'm doing this, just because I can. If I'm rehooking things back up, get rid of the pests.
I totally would, and I've actually been thinking more about this, and I think this was a video that Andrew Sandler did at Top Shelf where they had all those Malawis and some other like diamond-shaped freshwater fish, brackish fish that I don't know the name of, but they had in their sumps, and it had me thinking like maybe I want to put a couple fish in the sump as well going forward, maybe just a couple damsels just to keep an eye on stuff, and obviously I would feed them and such as well, but just to keep the sump, kind of in a good environment.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point, actually. Like, just as any little pests in there, something they can just pick at it. And...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would put a copper band down there, but there's fish that could do quite well in a sump environment.
Yeah. I'm looking at mine, and even like the middle chamber is like 2 foot by 2 foot. Like it's like, a decent sized little tank down there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so you've got some room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see, Holly, you're asking about the sand. So
Yep.
yeah, so we did talk about this a little earlier, and I did reuse all of the sand.
Brave.
I'll repeat myself on this because I think it was such an interesting topic. Ryan and so many other people talk about the sand bed being a litter box and just being able to get it out and use new sand. And honestly, that was my plan. I had got 3 bags of sand. I was going to pull it out and put new pristine white sand in there and be super happy with it. But when talking with Severin about it, he's like, you're going to be then pulling out a year and a half's worth of biomass and bacteria, beneficial bacteria on it. That might help in the tank transfer. So I thought about it, and I was like, you're probably right. So I left it in. I removed it all. Devin and I were talking. I didn't clean it. I didn't do anything. We filled up, 2 5-gallon bins of it. And we just dumped it back in, and so for a day, it was brown. You couldn't see anything, and my Micron filter kept getting full of it. I'd hear it go in, and I'd just wash it out and keep doing that. By the morning, it was crystal clear again, and I had no problems with any diatoms, any algae outbreaks, red slimes, this, that. So, and the sand looks pretty darn white.
No,
anyway,
it looks pretty dang good right now, so can't knock it. Now, just out of random curiosity, have you tested nitrates or phosphates since you moved it? And has there been any big change after doing that?
For the first time in ages, I have nitrates and phosphates.
Were you lacking them before?
I was bottoming out like crazy. I was dosing over 100 mil of amino acid to the tank, and I could not get any nitrates or phosphates in that tank. So
reusing your kitty litter sand bed actually fixed your problem.
It definitely helped in that, and obviously, the power intensity that I have of the light now is less than having the halide. So, all of those things have contributed to, being able to, have nutrients back in there. But my plan now is to then start restocking the tank. And so I have a fish wish list already prepared. And so I'm going to be slowly but surely be adding fish back into the system to help to create some of the necessary waste.
Nice. What's on the fish wish list?
Of course, so there's going to be a Moorish idol here. I'm going to pull it up so I don't forget everything that I put on there. But yeah, there's going to be a Moorish idol in there again. I'm going to do a marine beta. I'm going to do the threadfin cardinals. Those are the ones with the purple eyes. So I'm going to do a school of those, likely a school of Anthias. I'm not sure exactly which ones to do yet. I'm thinking about adding a long nose butterfly, yellow with the black in the face.
Cool.
Yeah, you don't see them much these days. I know they're not the most reef safe, but that's the thought in there to be able to add something like that into the tank. What else? Royal Grama, the azure damselfish. Those are the
Yep.
ones that are, yeah,
The blue and yellow.
blue and yellow. Yeah, or purpley blue and yellow. I want to do a Potter's Angel,
Nice.
a yellow chorus wrasse, a Schotz red leopard, a mystery wrasse, and I've got a couple other things that are on the list that I'm going to have to wait and talk about later.
Okay. Solid list, solid list. Now,
Yeah.
I have a question on the Moorish idol. Generally, those, in theory, can pick at corals. You had good luck. Is your luck going to prevail on the new one?
Well, you never know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've been keeping idols now for, well over a decade. So I've kind of learned a lot about them in terms of their appetite and their needs. So I'm hoping to be able to utilize some of that in the going forward. Ideally, I'd like to get one from Hawaii or Fiji, because their diet in those two regions are significantly different than Indonesia. The Indonesian variety is much more coral focused. So that's definitely something that I have in mind to find in those two other regions. So that'll be the place. And to get one small enough, palm size, or it would be ideal.
Yeah.
And let it grow up in the tank with the stuff there, and keep it fed with a variety of foods. So that'll be my plan.
Nice. I like it. Solid plan.
So that's the hope for it. I'm on the fence whether or not I want to go hardcore in the angel camp. And that will change some of the soft, squishy stuff I have in the tank. Yep. So, we'll see where I net out on that right now.
I guess the other question on this. So you have your temporary, I don't know if it's temporary, but you have your quarantine-ish tank full of corals.
Yeah.
On the other side of you. Is that temporary, or is that there to stay? Will that turn into a second tank with softies if you go the angel route, or will that be...
Yeah, good question. Yeah. So the two caddies will be on the side. I'll use the top for testing and stuff like that. I have underneath the stairs space that I'm going to use for a quarantine tank. So I will be putting in one or two, both 40 breeders in that space. And use that accordingly. I do have an office tank, a little 15-gallon cube that I have right now, some anemones and clownfish in there. So worst case, any squishy stuff I'll put in on that tank, and if I upgrade that down the road, I can do that.
Nice. Oh, good plan. I like it.
So, but definitely having a quarantine tank available. I don't know if I'm going to keep it up and going constantly. I'll probably keep it up while I'm adding the bulk of stuff into the tank. But my goal is to do as much as possible the captive bred fish. So definitely, that's where I'd like to get as much captive bred as possible, just to help to minimize some of those, disease and problems that I joyfully experienced already.
Yep. Good times.
Yeah, I knock on everything that the Uranema and the marine velvet does not hit me anytime soon.
Yeah. This sounds odd, but I almost miss having a smaller tank in a weird way. Like I still like my big tank, but as a second tank, the smaller one, because you could do different creatures in there that would be lost in the big tank you'd never see, like those little tiny things and stuff. Like, I don't know, they're kind of fun.
I was talking to my sister about this the other day, and my two tanks are like so night and day. Like the big tank is a lot of work. There's a lot of intricacies, a lot of tech into it. My anemone tank is super simple. Yeah. Like, but where do I get more joy out of? Honestly, I get more joy, pure joy, out of the anemone tank because it's next to my desk. It's super low key. The big tank, I love it, and I work my ass off for it, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
So it's like they tug on two different heartstrings, and I enjoy them for two different sets of reasons. But having them both going, it gives me the ability to see great pleasure between the two of them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All the different aspects.
Well, and trying out different technologies. Like I think, well, do I need like in that tank, I don't even have a dosing system on it. It's just like weekly water changes. I do 50% water change. And so that keeps, I have a couple of plague corals, obviously the bubble tip anemones and some mushrooms and zoas in there. The weekly water changes is enough for that tank. I don't need to do more to it.
Perfect. Nice and easy.
So that works. I'll put all the tech on the main tank.
I love it. What do we got? 450. Okay, so I won't keep you too much longer.
No problem.
Any other big considerations you would think of if you had to move again, or if you had to move your tank somewhere else? Well, was there anything that you would have done differently next time?
In terms of the moving itself, I think this time I was lucky enough to think through a lot of those things in advance. I think that the caveat to that, as you said, is if funds and possibilities make worth, get a new tank.
Yeah.
Right. If you can pull that off in any which way, I think that is by far the easiest option to go. Like if you've had your tank for a handful of years and you're ready to make that upgrade, moving is the great excuse to do that.
Yeah.
Having a tank that's a year and a half old, I couldn't justify that.
Yeah,
but that would be the one thing that I would suggest into people. The other thing is if you're going to be moving your tank and it's going to be dry for like your buddy who moved across province, or if you're moving it across states, do yourself a favor and put saran wrap over the top of the tank and seal it with with water in the inside in a bucket or something that's wet. And the reason is because if your silicone dries out, your tank is going to start to flex at any amount of time, more than a couple hours.
Really?
That silicone, because it's been used to the pressure under the volume of water, when you remove it all and it starts to dry, all of that silicone in there starts to adjust again, and it starts to expand and contrast. So if you're going to be out of water for a long period of time, or you're having a tank and you're just going to store it away, cover it up and put something wet in there just to keep that silicone moist, so it doesn't bow and flex on you, particularly if it's a bigger tank.
Huh, crazy. I never would have thought about that. Solid wisdom. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that we don't really think about, but a critical component if you're going to be moving a tank dry for any length of time.
No, that's a very, very good point. I like it. Good wisdom.
Yeah, so I guess that's the best piece I could think about when moving a tank. Yeah, and then it's like, enjoy the rebuild time. There's a lot of stress to it, but take those precautions. Dipping the corals, thinking about your fish list, and again thinking about what other equipment do you want to get on the tank. Like I still haven't added my ozone back onto it. My calcium reactor is still in shipland, so I'm hoping to get it so I can add to the tank soon.
Yep.
I'm starting to think again about adding a sulfur denitrator back onto the tank. And so
interesting. Those have fascinated me. I've never used one, but I've always been interested in them.
Yeah, I have in the past, and I had great success with it. I haven't used it in probably 8 or 9 years, but I'm planning to get one and to put in the system, and just to help to cut the edge, to allow me to again stock the tank a little bit more, but have that bacterial balance be taken care of within the sulfur denitrator.
Yeah, nice. I
So
like it.
maybe when I get that up and going, we can jump on another stream and we can talk all about that process.
No, I would love to, because they've always fascinated me, but I've never used one. So
Yeah, a lot of people, so they kind of were in vogue for a long time back in the 90s. People have kind of forgotten about it, and they've kind of come back, and they're really popular in Australia. Like some of the reefers there, they really swear by them. And so you're starting to see them come again. Deltec had talked about them at RAP. And so you're seeing them come back again to become more popular. And so they're making their way back, and it's because you can put such a low volume of water through it and have such a massive impact. But they ran into the same thing as like a calcium reactor. People thought they were scary, they were dangerous, and this and that. And they're no harder than a calcium reactor.
calcium reactors are easy.
Yeah, much,
Yeah.
much less volume of water to go through it. You could use a Versa to, put water through it and have, a great system that you either use with your algae scrubber, turf scrubber, or by itself, and you can achieve some great things.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. I like it. All right, buddy. I appreciate you coming on today and
Hey,
sharing
thanks for having me. Yeah,
the wisdom.
happy to share. And, again, good luck to anyone who's in the process or will be about to move. Having that list and that checklist, the prep move, at the new house, make sure that you've got everything ready to go. Think it through. It'll definitely save you a lot of pain and anxiety later.
No, definitely is worth it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our random kind of catch up stream today / all about moving a tank. Aaron, always full of wisdom, buddy. Always full of it. I'm going to have you
Thank you, sir.
on again in the near future.
Indeed.
Yep. If you guys enjoyed this, as always, hit that like button. You need to subscribe. Get some good future wisdom. And I'll catch you guys on the next live stream.